This episode of The Therapy Show is part of the Just Therapy podcast series, where we focus on values driven mental health topics rooted in family, faith, and tradition. Whether you're a therapist or someone seeking real, practical insights, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Please note that the content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional mental health care, diagnose, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your own licensed mental health provider or medical professional regarding your specific situation. While I am a licensed marriage and family therapist and my guests are also professional counselors, the discussions in this podcast are meant to offer general insights and should not be taken as personalized therapeutic advice. Listening to this podcast does not establish a therapist-client relationship with me or any of my guests. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or have thoughts of harming yourself or others, please contact a mental health professional, call 911, or go to the nearest emergency room immediately. You can also reach out to a crisis hotline such as the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988 in the United States for immediate support. Every individual's journey is unique, and what works for one person may not be suitable for another, so please use discretion and seek appropriate care as needed. As a therapist, I've had so many clients come to me feeling anxious, drained, and even hopeless about political changes and stress. And I wanted to give them more than just a conversation. I wanted to provide real tools to help them cope. And so that's why I created a workbook for navigating political stress. It's packed with practical exercises, journal prompts, and strategies to set boundaries, reduce anxiety, and focus on what you can control. And for you, my fellow therapists and coaches, this is an editable ebook, so you can customize it to fit your practice, add your branding, and adjust the content to meet your clients' needs. If your clients are struggling with political stress, this workbook can help. So go ahead and check the link in the show notes to learn more about this workbook and see if it is a fit for you and your clients. Hey, Rose, welcome to Just Therapy. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Rose Skeeters has been I think this is number 3 podcast episode that at least, you've been on a
Yeah.
bunch. Yeah, that's okay. That's what I
I
thought.
think 4 that we've done in total together on each other's
Mhm.
podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
so
awesome.
it is. So Rose is a friend and she's a therapist and she has her own podcast. Actually, share a little bit about your podcast and what you do.
Sure. I have a podcast called From Borderline to Beautiful, and that podcast is really aimed at families and loved ones, as well as individuals who struggle with borderline personality disorder and disorders of emotion regulation. And I just share tips and tools that they can use to overcome the diagnosis and really a message of hope that it's a good prognosis diagnosis.
Yeah, and I think it's such a fabulous podcast because it's not just for family or people who are dealing with borderline personality disorder, but it's just great mental health, just good information, good skills development, good reminders of how to be healthy, how to handle when relationships maybe don't turn out the way you want them to, or how to really work on your own emotional reactivity. So I think it's a great podcast, and I recommend it to everybody who struggles with any of those things. So I'm so glad you're
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So today, I know you and I connect. We know we text every couple weeks for kind of what's going on. What are you working on these days? And I knew right away when I started this this Just Therapy podcast series, I wanted to have you back on the show because
Yeah.
you come from such a grounded spiritual place of not just mental health issues, but just life. And I think it's so nice and it's so refreshing. And so a lot of the times when I need a grounding moment, I will text Rose and she will like give me some good feedback.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I wasn't always that way, and that's really how From Borderline to Beautiful is born. From a story of or my story where I struggled in life and with emotion regulation and having borderline personality disorder. I mean, we're getting older now, aren't we? This is many, many years ago, and my journey through that diagnosis and kind of getting to like this quote unquote other side. And so what I've come to learn in that journey is that being grounded in spirituality, being grounded in truth and morality is just so key to recover from mental illness. Without that, I really find that recovery is a struggle. Remission is definitely possible, but recovery, full recovery, and a life worth living, it's a struggle for many people. So I thought we could talk about that today, especially people looking for something that's not really what's happening right now on Insta-therapy, right? Or TikTok therapy. And not to overgeneralize, I'm just saying that the main message is you do you.
Mhm,
Set boundaries, be unforgiving, cut people out,
mhm.
indulge in your feelings, and you'll be okay. Find if you don't like your therapist, she's not telling you what you want to hear, find someone new. And these messages, they sound nice when you're sad, right? I just don't find that they're helpful
No.
really at all. Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't have TikTok. I don't, but I do have Instagram. And I also I don't see a lot of that, I guess, on my feed. I don't know what the difference is. Well, I probably do. I just don't doesn't click for me,
Follow
so
it.
I don't follow it. So I
Yeah.
don't click on it or like it, but I do know that, there is a trend, there is, and I see it with parents because I have teen children, teen girls, and I see it a lot with parents. I just want them to be happy. I just want them to feel good. I just want them, and it's like, sure, I mean, I want my kids to feel happy too, but I also want them to have critical thinking skills, and I want them to know what right from wrong is, and I want them to have a moral compass, and I want them to, have compassion and be kind and all of those things. But I think at the end of the day, good mental health comes from just truth, knowing truth and being rooted in objective truths. And right now in our culture, like you said, there's a lot of this you do you, and if it doesn't feel good, then it's not right for you. But that's detrimental because in the moment you want to feel good. In the moment you want to be told the right thing. But when you get that and then you go out into the world and then it's not reciprocated because you can't show up at your job like that, just wanting to feel good and it's crazy making. I use the word crazy making, but it doesn't help people reconcile what's the true issues are, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I kinda went off on a tangent.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's my
No,
little
that's
rant.
great. That's great, and we can have that kind of discussion because I think it does help people,
Mhm.
answering the question of why. Like, how do we get here?
Yeah.
Why is our society so narcissistic? I find that borderline personality disorder used to be this very small subset of a population of people. I mean, maybe that was because numbers, and we could argue that it wasn't as well researched, etc. I think it comes up on my feed because I am working with people with
Mhm.
borderline personality disorder, so I'm getting a lot of like what I call gen pop.
Mhm.
So the most people who are on social media, is looking at, and now I'm seeing this is really everywhere. So someone comes to me and they want help, they want support, and they want to learn skills, but it's like fighting an uphill battle because my what I believe in and what we know to be true, right? With psychological research as well. So this is not just my opinion or your opinion, but we know that people need resilience,
Mhm.
they need empathy. They need to understand the needs of others in order to deepen their connections and deepen their relationships. But society is saying, like, no, actually, narcissism is to be celebrated. We want, in this digital age, we want to compare ourselves to other people and we want to compete.
Mhm.
So we have the cycle of comparison and competition. And then, yeah, parenting trends. I
Mhm.
was going to bring that up is this idea that you are unique. Your child is so unique and so special that they have potential far beyond that of other children. And we're just going to praise them and praise them and praise them. And, it is true that I'm unique and it is true that you're unique. However, it is not true that my son, for example, is the most unique son out of all the sons that could have ever been. Because when you do that to a child, you're teaching them that they don't have to follow the same rules, that they don't have to develop resiliency, excuse me, and they don't really have to think of other people because they're already great,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
how can you cultivate character if you're already the best?
Right. Right. Yeah, because 'cause you're the best. You've
You're the
already
best.
surpassed everybody, and no one can hold a candle to you. You are everything. Yeah,
Right, so you can go and
mhm.
buy that Nike jumpsuit.
Mhm.
You can go and buy your really cool kicks, your
Mhm.
daughters play volleyball, right?
Mm.
They can look the part and then they can take the selfie.
Yeah.
They're great. They don't have to practice or show up to practice or perform. There's no, I think Jay calls it meritocracy. There's not
Yeah.
really meritocracy unless you're in a certain type of a community. Let's give everybody stickers.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it just prevents people from growing and developing and being loving, responsible, well, I guess people with good character.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. But just to put a asterisk there, my kids don't do those things.
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah,
No, I know.
absolutely. No.
I know, I was just thinking it's kind of funny, like, I'm trying to imagine them actually doing that.
Yeah, my son does not. We're
Yeah.
not big in give your teenager social
Yeah.
media, which is a whole other thing, very
Mhm.
controversial, but I want him to know that there's a world outside of comparing yourself to
Mhm.
other people, you know? So,
Yeah, and it makes and I mean, it's hard enough to, be a kid and try to figure out what you're into and what's what you wanna do and, what you wanna study and or
yeah.
what trade or whatever you wanna go into. It's like opening up an app and comparing yourself to other people, and gosh, I mean, I'm so glad we didn't have social media when we were that age. It would have been really tough. Yeah, and I'm a big proponent of not giving your kids social media until they're 16, at least. So, but that's a whole other podcast. Yeah. So what do we do? I mean, I think there's plenty of and I come from this from a parenting perspective, but I think there's plenty of parents out there that understand this and that they know that,
Mhm.
to raise children with self-confidence and with resiliency and critical thinking skills, it doesn't just happen. It's like it takes parenting to do those things, and it takes
Right.
boundaries, and it takes living and learning and consequences and all those things. But maybe the teen that is doesn't have the best boundaries or the best role models right now in his or her life, and they're listening today and they're like, "How do I move through this? How do I become a different person? Because I don't like the way I'm showing up in the world and how people respond to me and react to me. I would like to be different." What do you think they should start?
That's a great question. I think the first thing is this self-awareness or
Mhm,
awareness of what's going on around you is that it appears things aren't always what they appear, right? So I just spent some time talking about parenting trends and competition and comparison, all these things. And while that appears true and is in the social media world, just recognizing that actually people want deeper connections. People want podcasts like this.
mhm,
So kind of rest assured that there are people out there that you can find and follow that want a different life. And so what that different life is and what you'd be looking for is the development of good character. Good character are the qualities, traits, characteristics, and life choices that we make over time that may help us develop into being who we are, a good person who thinks of other people, who has integrity and discipline and humility and compassion. That just doesn't happen to us overnight. And there was a time where character was something that was taught in school.
mhm,
So if you had, for example, like a character trait of pride, and what your school would do, your parents, role models, coaches, what they would work on doing is helping you throw away that, let's say, character flaw and develop a character trait that would offset that and help you, be more fulfilled in life. So we
mhm,
know that humility means, giving up what we think we deserve
right,
and sacrificing ourselves for someone else, and that's something that again, it can be invaluable to develop that. So I would start by looking for role models that are talking about character development, that are talking about having a creed or a moral compass. I really love if you're a boy or a male and you're into like Navy SEALs. I love Chad Wright. He's a great guy to follow.
mhm,
Willink, Mark Divine. There's a lot of podcasts up and coming right now. Sean Ryan is another one. Those individuals are really great role models for young boys becoming men who want a different outlook or a different worldview.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. What about for young women? Who would you recommend, or what are you noticing?
Yeah, so for young women, it's a little bit more, difficult. I have to be honest because there aren't as many resources
Mhm,
speaking to young women about how to be feminine, but also how to be strong. You can have both. You don't have to be a feminist, right? I think that there's a lot of emptiness in what we would call feminism today, right? Meaning it's okay for me to allow my husband to open the car door for me. That's okay. That doesn't mean that he thinks I can't open a car door. There is value to being feminine and bringing feminine energy to a relationship. So I think that you would want to start with finding someone who isn't using femininity as a weapon against men.
mhm,
If you find that the people that you're listening to or following are women who are sort of hateful to men or disrespectful to men or look down on men. You definitely want to find role models that want to celebrate both genders, right? And to celebrate how they can play off of one another
Mhm.
instead of this, you can do everything yourself as a woman. There are things, Lisa, that I'm not going to be able to do
Right.
because I don't have, I'm not a man. And that's okay. That
Sure.
doesn't mean that I'm less than.
Right.
So I think starting with role models there would be really helpful.
I wish I could come up with somebody off the top of my head, but I can't. Nothing is coming at the moment. So,
I like Elizabeth Elliot, she's great, but
mm,
she is more of, like, in the spiritual
mhm,
world. She's a strong, female role model. Is there
sure.
anyone that you listen to that's spiritually based?
I mean, I can't think of anything. I spend so much of my listening. Well, I like fitness podcasts, so I think there's probably somebody that I listen to. I just can't. I'm 51 years old, so who am I listening to? I can't think of who would be appropriate for young women, but I'm sure.
Michaela Peterson.
Oh, yeah, no, I do, yeah. She's got a great show. Yeah, she's got a
Yeah.
great podcast. Yeah, she's a really good example. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay.
Mhm.
There's also the young woman, the granddaughter of the Duck Dynasty show. I can't not think of her name, but she has a pretty big show and brand. Sadie something. Is it Sadie Robertson, I guess? That's her name, but she's married. She has a really big podcast and a really big following. I don't think who
Yeah,
else. But yeah, Michaela Peterson, she's good. She's
she's
really
great,
good, and
yeah.
she talks about her struggles too, how what she grew up with. I think she grew up with anxiety and depression. I mean, she really talks a good bit about her struggles. So
Yeah.
I think it's really cool when you have somebody who, at one point in their life, was dealing with mental health struggles, whatever they
Mhm.
might be, and then they discover the remedy for themselves. And I think that's just so
Mhm.
fascinating how that is. I know that in my 20s, I was going through some stuff too. I know you and I have talked about, my history. And then when I went to therapy for the first time and I learned about a lot of what you're sharing, character development and being worth, I don't want to say chivalry, but, just like it's okay. A guy can hold a door open for me and I don't have to prove anything. I can just be
Yeah.
me. And yeah, I think my husband knows. He does those things. He's so sweet. He'll open the doors. He'll let us go in first. And I love that he's modeling that for our kids, for our daughters. I think that's really special because I didn't have that growing up. So it was something for me to get used to. It was very abnormal to be around somebody like that. Yeah. Okay, I think this is such a great topic. Is there what else comes to mind
Yeah,
as we
so
could
I
share?
think you bring up a good point about your husband and, like, the family unit.
Are you tired of sitting in front of the computer to watch hours and hours and hours of recorded trainings so you can get your continuing education requirements fulfilled? Look, I was, and I decided to do something about it. I have created convenient on the go learning that's completely audio based. I call them pod courses. Well, what's a pod course? Think of it as a hybrid between a captivating podcast and a self study course tailored for you, my perpetually busy counselor friend. In my pod courses, you can explore subjects like addiction issues, ethics and values in counseling, holistic approaches, and much more, all while you're on the move. Whether you're commuting, jogging, relaxing at home, whatever, pod courses blend your favorite podcasts with enriching self study courses, perfect for those always on the go. How it works. So tune in anywhere, anytime. Enjoy the pod courses on any device wherever podcasts are available. Quiz yourself, solidify your understanding with a brief quiz after each pod course. Then, last but not least, certify your smarts. Achieve a score of at least 80% to receive a certificate of completion. If you're curious to learn more about my pod course offerings, head to the link lisamustard.com/pod courses or just click the link in the show notes. Pod courses are brought to you with pride by Mustard Consulting LLC, your trusted NBCC ASEP provider.
So if you asked about teens, so I think that we can kind of wrap that. If you're a
Mhm,
teen and you don't have a role model, you can seek one. You can use social media to your advantage. Don't use it to your disadvantage. So
mhm,
instead of comparing and competing and taking these selfies and feeling like you're not good enough because all of these people are giving the best of themselves in social media, find people out there who are running counterculture, who are talking about empathy and resiliency and character development. The Tony Robbins of the world. He's another, kind of big coach. But if you're just listening to the podcast and you're a parent or an adult or a young adult in the world, something that you can do if you're in a family unit is work on your family dynamic. Because
Mhm.
if you have children, it is very important for your children to start having conversations with you about character development, right? I think we need to bring that back into
Yeah.
the home. In other words, like,
Mhm.
how do you become a good person? And why should you sacrifice for other people? What's the value of empathy? And how can empathy really bring another dynamic to your relationships and deeper connection? We even have moral compass values like listed in our home. So,
Mhm.
what is integrity? What does that mean?
Mhm.
And how can we be your accountability partners as a family and a family unit to help you be integrity, to hold you up, to have integrity, excuse me, to hold you
Mhm.
up? So, I think that's really valuable as well. Do you guys have conversations about integrity and honesty? And
Mhm. We
yeah.
do, we do. It's probably different. We don't have anything, up on the wall. We do talk about integrity and honesty and being a person of virtue and value, being of value to others and helpful and em empathic.
I think one of the things that I didn't know, or I don't know how it skipped the boat with me, I think there is a genetic component. I had big emotions. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I find deeply sad is that people don't know how to love other people or they're resistant to it. Most of the
Yeah.
work that I do, whether it's someone with borderline personality disorder on that sort of spectrum, or even just with depression, it's like emotions have become these things that we're supposed to live in. Whereas I think emotions were meant to color
Yeah.
our world. As
Mhm.
if you're looking at a painting, it's supposed to make it look pretty, but it's not the focus of the painting. And I think that if you feel your feelings, you feel like they overwhelm you. You want to start to learn some tips and tricks to turn that dial down so that you can love people well. I have
Yeah.
people come to me going, but that person won't talk to me. They don't communicate well. They won't validate me. And there's that target and of loving well, and then it's missed by this sort of effort to get validation. So that's another product of being in a digital age where we're watching each other all the time. There's no more intrinsic motivation, really, right? It's
Yeah.
a lot of external, validate me, be there for me. And what's missed is that everybody is broken. We're all human, one
Mhm.
blood, one race, right? All
Mhm.
human, and we all have brokenness.
Yeah.
So if you struggle with your relationships, learning really good skills to calm your nervous system down, to regulate your emotions, and then to look at someone else and try to take their perspective. It's key. So that's what we talk about that a lot in my house, like perspective taking. What do you think that person's going through? How do you think they feel? And really trying to teach that as a skill, perspective taking, because that helps me. I don't ever have to really think about having mental illness again because it's just it's not something that comes back and like
Yeah.
jumps on my back because I love others
Mhm.
and I will always sacrifice, my behavior, my emotion, excuse me, for someone else because I know that they might have an emotion too. And so because I don't no longer, I used to believe I was the most unique kid on the playground, okay? But that's what my mother taught me, but I know that that's not true.
Mhm.
And so I think because of that, if you stop thinking of yourself as so special and you start thinking of yourself as just human,
Yeah.
you're special because you have individual talents, but you're just the same as everyone else. Then you can begin to love other people well. There's that famous like biblical quote, right? Love is patient and kind. It's not jealous or boastful. It looks so great in TJ Maxx, doesn't it? When you see it on clearance, like in the what's so beautiful.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mhm.
what does that really mean?
Yeah.
Well, it means that when somebody wronged you or somebody didn't take out the trash or a lot for the women out there, their husband put their clothes next to the laundry
Mhm.
bin and not inside the laundry bin. Love is patient and kind. It means pick it up,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Like maybe they just don't see what they're doing is so impactful for you, or maybe they had a bad day, but like, does that really matter?
Yeah.
Think about what they do for you and see if you can bridge the gap there by loving them and forgiving them. and set boundaries with people who have hurt you in a real threatening way. But you don't have to set boundaries with everyone all day long. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, right?
Mhm.
I had somebody tell me one time that they heard that in a marriage, you're supposed to have a hula hoop on, and then the other person is supposed to have like this hula hoop on, and then you're supposed to stay in your hula hoops. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. Where's vulnerability if I'm in a hula hoop and my husband's in a hula hoop over there? When does that happen?
Right.
So that a willingness to be emotionally naked. So I think that if you're on a path and a journey to find something bigger than just emotion psychology or positive psychology that's sort of just talking about, this idea that your emotions are all that matters, you can sit in them, trauma stored in the body. Oh, this is a controversial thing to say, but it's not, right? Like, yes, PTSD is a real thing, mental illness is a real thing, but we are not designed to carry trauma, the for the rest of our lives. It's really just not how that works. And so I think if you're looking for something that's not that, if you've done it and it didn't work for you, go back to the ways the world used to work, which is looking at your character flaws, pulling them apart, developing new character traits by, having different life experiences, making different life choices, and then really looking at how do I love other people better? That is how you do life. You love people well, and then people will love you, and then
Oh,
people
yeah.
won't leave you. It's beautiful,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a lot to take in, a lot to consider, especially if you're not used to thinking about it like that. And I know that some people aren't, it's
Yeah.
loving others sounds so foreign because they have so much hurt and anger and
Mhm.
whatever they've got. So it might be hard for them to go there or to understand that. But I do
Yeah.
find that when I'm in a space of feeling anxious or sad, and like you, it's like the mental health, the mental illness doesn't necessarily jump on me anymore. I can kinda like, "Oh, that's old stuff, and this is why I'm feeling that way. So what do I do? How do I remedy that?" I go to a lot of what you're saying. It can be hard at times, and I think it's gonna be different for everybody because we're all
Yes.
unique and we all have our stuff. But when you have loving, trusting, vulnerable relationships and people can be honest with you and you know that they're saying these things because they love you and because they care about you and they're giving you the feedback and you can take it in, then you can change. It's not easy, but it's totally doable. So, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and experience. And I love having you on the podcast. You always give me lots to think about and lots to consider. So, how can folks find you if they want to learn more about you?
Sure. You can find me at thriveonlinecounseling.com. Also, the podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you can hear a podcast. It's just called From Borderline and Beautiful Hope and Help for BPD by Rose Skeeters. And also send email rose at thriveonlinecounseling.com.
So I'll put all of that in the show notes, you guys. So thank you so much for being here, Rose. It's just been great to have you.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome. Please note that the therapy show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover all the pod courses and other continuing education offerings. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.